no motu e ka hau, e nai nei ku noho ana hau, ki wanya into my whainga. I'm just going to open up our session today. Welcome. We've had it here, which is called the Lord's Prayer. I'm just going to chant it into our Māori. Te inoi Aotearoa. E tō mātou mato i te rangi, kia tapu tō ingoa, kia tai mai tō rangatiretanga, kia mea te ato e pai a ki runga ki te whenua, kia riti anō ki tō te rangi, o mai kia mātou anu, e taro mā mātou mō te mea, urea o mātou hara, me mātou e ki e murune, i o te honga e hara ana ki a mātou. Ou e hoki mātou e kawara ki a whakawaia, engari whakaorangi a mātou i te inu. No hoki te ranga teretanga, te kaha me te karoria, ake, 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 amen.
Beautiful. Tēnā koutou e te whānau. Ko Mark Westerby aho. My name is Mark Westerby. Very pleased to be here in Te Awamutu. I reside in Wellington, but I'm from the Waikato originally. It's really nice to come home. And I was just saying, nice to connect with old friends who I haven't seen for a long time. I just saw my old teacher from my school. There's nothing like coming home to make you feel like, and I have to say, Des Savage up the back there, I worked with Des when I was a projectionist, when I was young in Hamilton, and that was where I got my first start and where I started to get my passion for film. I went from breaking more films probably than I showed, to really getting a passion for filmmaking as a producer. I work for an organisation called Screen Wellington, so we are the regional film office in the Wellington region. My role is head of attractions, so I'm all about bringing film and television and gaming actually productions to the Wellington region. So it's a great marketing role. The good thing is when I go overseas and talk about not just Wellington but New Zealand is that we're a known quantity. People know who we are, people know us by our reputation. So that's a great thing when I get in the room with them and talk to them about bringing their production to New Zealand. Today's panel is about Voices of Aotearoa, and when Paige asked me to write the brief for this, I was thinking about a couple of things. The first thing is that there has never been a bigger demand for content than there is now. We are consuming content at a rate of knots. People want to watch stories, they want to see documentaries, they want to know about what's going on in this world. That's a great thing. The problem we have is that the funnels and the mechanisms of getting content and stories to the people who want to watch it is filled with challenges, shall we say, whether that be challenges from a capitalist sense, where everyone wants to make money along the way, or challenges from just being able to tell your story and to be able to find the right audience for the content matter that you have. So that was really the idea for today's conversation. The thing I heard recently is that New Zealand is ostensibly an English-speaking country. We have 3 traditional languages, of course. So on the world stage, we are competing with 2 of the largest filmmaking superpowers. We're competing with America and the UK. They produce more content, in the English-speaking world. So that's our playing field. So that's not necessarily a good thing if we're competing that way. So what do we do to rise above that? Well, we find our own unique voice. Our unique voice is our heritage, our culture, our people, and that includes obviously our indigenous Māori people as well. I'm Ngāti Pakeha, so I'm not Māori, but I've grown up in the Waikato in a place where I feel like I should be. And I certainly embrace all parts of our culture as a New Zealander, as someone who is from Aotearoa. So it's interesting for me to be running a panel about the voices of Aotearoa, but I think today we should be able to have a really robust discussion about what that means and how we can reach the audiences out there. Because I think I was saying last night, and I think I got my numbers wrong, Tiki, but if you look at the top 10 films in New Zealand that have sold at the box office, number 1 is Hunt for the Wilder People, number 2 is Boy, we've got The Whale Rider is up there as well. So indigenous and Māori Pacific stories travel because people want to see themselves on screen. So this is something that we need to see more of. It's something we need to encourage more of. We also need to encourage more collaboration. So today I'm very, very, very excited to have these esteemed panelists with me. I'm going to get them to introduce themselves because I don't like reading other people's bios because they know who they are. They can tell us about themselves. So I'm going to start with you, Briar.
Kia ora, me uri ahau no Ngāwhiri, Ngāti Wairuki, for Briar Grace Smith ahau. I'm a writer, director, and a sometimes tiny bit actor. My people come from the north on my dad's side. On my mum's side, my dad was originally from Timaru. He was of Scottish, I don't know why. I hate getting caught up because it just goes on forever. He was of Scottish descent. And I live in Paikakariki on the Kapiti coast. I think I'm going to be 60 years and I'm get where I've got my head on the heels.
Tēnā rā tātou katoa, tuatahi he mihi nui ki a koe whaia, Patsy mo tō karakia, te ahi nei tēnā koe, ki a koe Mark, hoki, tēnā koe, ki a koutou katoa, tēnā koutou, ki a koutou te mana whenua o konei, nā koutou te mana no reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I haven't started yet. No. You thought you were the part I should have done first, so I'm like, the middle child. I am actually the middle child. But so my name's Ninakaye. No Ngāti Maniapoto Māua ko Tiki, ko ia. He's my brother. This is my brother Tiki. He'll introduce himself, obviously. We're from a beautiful place called Waitomo, up the road there. Ngāti Wekaharua Puha, born and raised in Christchurch. I'm a grandmother, I'm a mother. My mahi is mainly managing. I don't really need to manage Tiki because he self-manages, to be fair, but I manage his company, Tiki Productions. I sit on a few boards in the music industry, so I mainly represent the music industry, but I do have a background in film and television. And I am involved with 2 films that are at this festival. This one supporting him, and the other is called Songs of Rangi Aowhia, which is one of the shorts. Thank you.
Kia ora, sis. What Ninakaye said, basically. Kia ora, sis. Kia ora, everybody. My name is Tiki Tanne, little brother. Ninakaye, she's not been so completely honest there. She does manage me. She basically tidies up all the mess that I make out there. So I'm a musician, producer, sound engineer, now a filmmaker, this is pretty cool. Make music and art and stuff, and have our own company called Tiki Productions, where we basically, that's the hub of everything, and create it all and send it out to the world, and enjoy doing it all the time and working with incredible people, like especially my whānau sister, the other sister Maureen. She's not here, but she's an incredible part of our whānau too. And just awesome to be here amongst everybody on this panel. Kia ora.
Kia ora, thank you, whanau. Let's start with a proposition. I mean, I grew up watching TV, as you all did, and I guess what I saw when I was growing up was a lot of American TV, because that's what we were being shown. I mean, nowadays we've got so much access to so much more content. I want to start with you, Briar, and particularly let's talk about, maybe with respect to cousins, because that was a labour of love, that film itself. That took a long time to come to fruition. Many script drafts, many funding rounds to get there. But it was a story, I think, that actually echoed with a lot of Kiwis. That idea of how people could come from the same whakapapa, from the same world, but be so different. And this is the idea, I guess, in terms of getting stories out there into the world of how Kiwi stories travel. Can you tell us about that journey just a little bit?
Yeah, I'm just looking out here and I see my dear friend Waimihi Hōtere, who was one of the actors in Cousins, and who has, I just want to mihi to her because she's been in a lot of my work, and she's in my work because I'm a strategist and I know my weaknesses, so Waimihi comes in to kind of, she's absolutely incredible with actors and getting people to feel comfortable together. So I just want to, before they go on set or whatever, so I just want to acknowledge my sister over here. Yeah, so that was, Cousins was a very long journey. It was written by my then mother-in-law, Patricia Grace. She's still, I'm not married to her. I think we are still married, but we've been apart for many years, just didn't get divorced. But, but she's my dear friend, I should just call her that, Patricia Grace, and she wrote Cousins inspired by her family. So the story's in it, it's 3 cousins who were very close. As children, one of them gets taken by the state and taken to an orphanage and disappears. And the other 2 cousins basically spend the rest of their lives trying to bring her back home, and she ends up homeless. And it is about, you know, how fate, and also like these things that happen post-colonisation, where how important our whakapapa and family ties are to us and what happens when they're broken, and the kind of devastating effect that it can have on whānau. So that's kind of the story. And Mera Te Mita, who most of you probably would have heard of, tried to get that film made many times over many years. And because of what this was, I think it was possibly over like 20 years, she had that in a kind of a development, and couldn't get funding to get it up. So she also wrote the script with Patricia, I think, looking in on that part of the process. In those times, it wasn't popular to be Māori, and the idea of making a film where Māori women were the face of the film all over the screen, and our stories were all over the screen in such a way, the funders did not think that anyone would come and watch that film. And so it never, Merita passed away and that film didn't get made. So we basically, Ainsley Gardner and myself, Ainsley's a producer and a director, picked that film up. And I didn't read the scripts that went previously, I wrote the script. By the time it came around, we were always looking outwards for directors. But by the time the script was made, we'd both directed a couple of shorts, and I said to her, why don't we direct it, you know? And so we ended up co-directing it, the 2 of us, which is quite an unusual, you know, people don't often co-direct. There's a lot of that thing in New Zealand about being auteur, you write and direct it together, but as Māori, I don't know how, I think we're starting to change the way we develop films, the way we even write them. We can write them as groups, we work well as communities, and the way we direct. So it came about like that. Also, the film takes place over, there are 3 leads, but they're all different ages. So there are actually 9 leads. You see them when they're children, you see them when they're teenagers, and then you see them when the lead characters when they're older women. So there were 9 leading roles for Māori women, and so there was a big net that we cast, you know, we threw out in terms of the casting. And I think the film is also when you watch it, you'll see many characters. It's a real Māori film. So that was the other thing.
It's a real Briar film.
Oh, no.
Briar has at least 15
Yeah.
members in the same, cast members in the same scene.
Yeah.
It's a real Briar film.
But this is an interesting thing about filmmaking, is that we often work from this Western kind of paradigm where they tell us it's sort of a Hollywood way of making films, where they go, you can have one protagonist, you can have like only a few other people in the film, and otherwise we're all going to lose track. They say it has to be linear. Like, there are rules that we've inherited over here from Hollywood. So a big thing with me is but why does it have to be like that? You know, why can't we make films with many characters and write them in different ways, and on set also operate in different ways? We're also used to working on set in a hierarchical structure. There's a director, there's a producer, there's a director of photography. And with Māori, I think we're used to working as a team, you know, together. Everyone's in charge, has their skill set and has something that they're an expert in, but we all share a vision and we all pull in, and we're not putting each other down, or we're not saying I'm more important. So we tried to bring that philosophy onto the set in Cousins. So in terms of where we're going into the future, in terms of filmmaking, I think the stories are starting to change maybe, but I think what is more interesting to me is that the process of making films is that we're finally saying we can do it our own way, and we can be just as successful and make films that are, you know, have a different kind of flavour. Just went on a bit of a tangent there, but
Good tangent. And of course, you know, one of the important things that you said was that, you know, when Merata had, you know, tried to get that film up in the past, or tried to get it made, we almost weren't ready to see it, or they didn't think audiences would go and see it. But how the world has changed, or how we've changed in terms of how we view our own work.
Yes.
Yeah. Tiki, I want to ask you, I mean, as a musician, as a storyteller, as now a filmmaker, and a soundtrack composer, you know, all of those things, all of those creative endeavours. What is important to you about telling your story? What's important to you about telling the story of the people and the land around you?
Thanks, Sos. Okay, good question. I guess, you know, like when I create music and art, and it's always from within. And that's the only way I know how to do things. It's like from my life experience and the trauma and the things that I've gone through and the things that my whānau have gone through and friends and things. So it's just uniquely your creativity, but your outlook on what's going on in my circle and stuff like that. I mean, I do get affected by what's happening around the world, of course, but I also try to acknowledge, well, how does that fit into my world, and as a Māori man, indigenous person to this country as well, and how does that affect our whānau and our iwi and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's super important to write from the heart, write from your truth. Everything that I do when it comes to, you know, performing, and I have to stand there and believe it. People know, they smell bullshit pretty straight away. So everything as a musician, and that's what it has to come from, that place of honesty, truth, vulnerability, and all of that stuff, all of that good stuff, really open up. And that's where I like to be. I like to be in that space when I perform. And so I like to be in that space in the studio as well, and when I'm creating and things. And so when I put together this film, this music documentary, it was the same kind of thing. I'd never done anything like that before, but I'd done heaps of gigs, heaps of touring, and I played in front of thousands of people for 27 odd years. So I knew what worked, and I knew that honesty and that connection with the audience, I knew that would translate into film. So that I just work with the tools that I know. And so that's important too, to just kind of go, okay, well, really dig deep and go, these are the things I know I can do. So do them, and do them really well. And So yeah, I don't know if that answered the question, but yeah, it's just believe in yourself is the other thing. A lot of this imposter syndrome thing that creeps into me as well. Even today coming here, I was like, I don't know the answer to that question. What's the voice look like in 2020? I don't know, but you know, I had to kind of go, well, I'm going to talk from my point of view. I know what I'm doing in 2024, and I know what I'm doing in 2034. I know where I'm going, so I can talk from that point of view. And yeah, it's very important to just shoot from here outwards, and just trust yourself and believe in yourself and use the tools that you have to 100%. Yeah.
And that's a very good point. And to anyone who is up and coming in the industry, sitting in the audience, the imposter syndrome never leaves you. You know, I've been working in the industry for a long time as well, and you know, you always feel like, oh, should I really be here? But we all feel like that. Honestly, we do. You know, even the most experienced producers and directors and artists I know all feel that way. So you're in the same boat. So don't worry about that. Ninakaye, you were talking about some of your film and television experience there, and Briar brought up a really good point before around the westernised way of doing things. I just wonder if you could comment on any changes that you've seen in the way of working, especially probably more in sort of the standardised broadcasting world, where we now see things with a bit more of a New Zealand lens, not just in the way we present stuff, but the way we work as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, when I was in strictly the film and television industry, it wasn't a long time ago now, really. It was 20 something years ago, and I was like an assistant director and worked on the very first Māori kind of spiritual Māori series that had ever broadcast, which was called Mataku, and that was incredible. Got to work with a different Māori director each episode, Kerry Carter, Vanessa Rari, and others. And that was the things that Briar was saying. By the way, I'm such a fangirl of Briar.
I'm a fangirl of both of them.
Yeah, he's cool too, but you know, I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I was imposter syndroming big time. Like, well, am I really supposed to sit here by Briar? But anyways, but what Briar was saying around Māori have influenced the industry is very, very true. Because even with that particular series, you know, we prior to that we had the likes of Xena and Hercules come in, right? Those two series really pushed us, I believe, into an interesting, amazing, dynamic space, because it was Hollywood all of a sudden in the hood, you know, and it was like, whoa. And Hollywood quickly realised that Māori and New Zealand, but I'm going to speak about Māori, were hard-working, good-spirited, warm people who were just, you know, they just realised that they were cracking it, Hollywood, because all the Māori kaimahi were just absolutely devoted, you know, and that's, and because of our community way of doing things, our whakawhanaungatanga abilities to make everybody feel like whānau, our manaakitanga, all our values of our ancestors, I believe that really had an impact on the global industry, because then Hollywood has continued to come back more and more and more, but through that as well, we've learnt to how to manage Hollywood better, because obviously there were times where it wasn't reciprocated, and we started to realise that actually we're kind of being taken for granted quite a bit. And so, and then also I've seen the awakening within ourselves around, actually we can do this ourselves. We don't need to wait for Hollywood to come and do it. And so, yeah, I've seen incredible development, and you know, to hear what you were saying about you know, how they weren't ready for, you know, we merata for the Māori wahine to be on camera, you know, or to be on screen. I mean, that's that's a great, huge indicator of where things were and where we are now, and where we're heading is certainly a much better place. And I think we're actually in a really strong position, New Zealand or Aotearoa, you know, generally, because again, they kind of look to us a lot of the time because of how we took care of Hollywood through all the different productions that have come here and utilised our whenua and our awas and our people, you know, and how we've in return taught them that this has to be the right way to do it. And I think, yeah, there's still a long way to go. We're still, Hollywood, you know, I mean, Hollywood's a monster, but I believe that we've had some sort of impact, and then we've taken the good from it, and yeah, we're in a pretty good place. Yeah.
And I think the good news is that Hollywood is changing. As we know, there's been strikes over in Hollywood this year. I think the landscape is changing in terms of how content is managed. People know that they kind of want to take the gatekeepers out of the equation now in terms of the traditional route to making stories work. Another observation, I was fortunate enough to be a producer on the feature film Whina, alongside Tainui and Matthew, and you know, we had the beautiful Rina Owen playing, I think, one of the roles of her lifetime there in that film. And I interviewed her for the behind the scenes content, and one of the things that she had said that was, you know, after Once Were Warriors, you know, she was everywhere, of course. It was such a powerful film. It changed our landscape and the way that we think and we feel and how we tell stories. But unfortunately, New Zealand wasn't ready for Rina. You know, there were no roles for her at all as an actress, as a young Māori actress in New Zealand at that time. So she had to travel to LA to try and make a career out of that. And it's only really now that she felt like she could come home to her home country to play a role. So I mean, that says a lot about the development of stories and roles for Māori in New Zealand over these past number of years. And isn't it great that she could come home and play a role like Whina, you know, like the role that she was meant to play. So I mean, that's an observation too that we see in the trenches all the time. Another observation I wanted to make about what you see, especially working with Māori and working with Kiwis on film sets. I was working on the Deadlands, the TV series, and I think 80% of the crew and the cast were Māori. And it was one of the most amazing film sets to be on because the guitar was there, everyone was having a good time. You know, we do a karakia at the start of every day. You just get in the right mindset in order to start creating, to start working. And I honestly think the results were richer as a result. But we had the network executives from AMC, they were over from America, and they were just absolutely amazed at the way we worked and the way we worked as a team to make things happen. Of course, America's very unionised, so you know, if I'm not a grip, I'm not going to touch that pile of cables on the ground. Whereas everyone's like, well, let's just get it done. And that was such a great thing about the attitude that we had towards making, and I think that shows, and that's really made a difference in the way that we're seen internationally as well. Briar, I don't want you to answer the question of what the voice of Aotearoa is, because you know none of us know the answer to that. But in the making of your work, I heard you talk recently. You were talking about you were always interested in the underdog stories. Tell us about why that's interesting to you, and what sort of things you would like to make in the future with that in mind.
Well, it's interesting to me in a couple of ways, and part of it too is, like many people, I think, you know, I grew up in an era where there was a lot of activism, and it's starting to come back, right? You're starting to see more and more protests and people rebelling against what we've been told we have to accept. So I kind of grew up in the like fight the power kind of thing going on in my head, but I've always felt for people, always empathise with kind of disparity or things not the level playing field. Like things should be fair, and so those are the characters I respond to and you want to write for, and it's partly because it's about hope. I feel like as a filmmaker it's a real privilege, right? And it's such a privilege to be able to tell stories and sometimes get money for it. And so we should, I'm not saying don't write a comedy, don't have fun, don't write a romance and do all that kind of frothy stuff, but I believe there should be a message, or there should be also a message of hope and empowerment. So practically you start with an underdog character, and it's a story of getting that person to kind of reach their height of magnificence, and hopefully people watching it will respond to that and draw kind of hope from it. So that's partly why I do it. But yeah, again, I really empathise with people who are in situations that aren't fair, that have been imposed on them even from birth.
And another thought I had too, I came back from LA recently. I was at AFM, and I went into a meeting of the NAACP, which is, I can't remember, the Association for African American People. They just released their own sort of report on black people working within the entertainment industry in America. And the cool thing was there were so many similarities to reports that we've already put out in terms of the way we work. And one of the women who was on the panel said at one point, she said, oh yeah, she's an actress. And she said, oh, if I get asked to, play a downtrodden housewife one more time, she said, that's just it's not who I want to play. And then also it starts sending a wrong message around these characterizations that we have of our indigenous people. And there were some comments earlier in the session today that was very similar to that as well, that we need to think when we're writing around how we typecast, I guess is the word, people, and actually make it more of a journey, more of a, stereotyping, more empowerment within these characters. I think that's the challenge for writers out there as well. Tiki, how do you feel in terms of, now that you're about to direct your next feature film and become a massive New Zealand director? I'm putting words in your mouth. How do you see a lot of that in the music world as well? Had you seen a lot of that where there was sort of typecasting in terms of, like, people see who you are and they make assumptions in terms of what sort of music you're going to be playing, how you present yourself? Absolutely. Can you talk to us about that journey? Because I know it's not been an easy one.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess, Tiki Tanne, for starters, the name can also be quite triggering for some people. Yeah, I've definitely been stereotyped as a musician, a Māori musician, heavily tattooed. I was going back to Once Were Warriors, I saw that film when I was 14, I think, and I came out of that movie theatre inspired to go, I want to look like that, just covered, right? But we grew up in Aotearoa, Christchurch, so miles away from our iwi, our marae, our cousins, aunties, uncles, and tupuna and everything like that. So we're miles away from that. So I was just like, I've got to get this. I'm hanging out to be Māori. I was just, so Once Were Warriors changed my life. So I started getting moko, but there was no Māori tattooist down there. So I went to a Pākehā tattooist and drew up my little wee korus and everything, and went, can you put that on here? Boom. So for the first 3 years, I was just getting tattooed Māori tā moko, but done by Pākehā, because I didn't know any Māori tattooists. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but but basically it's kind of leading to, you love it, eh? So being in Christchurch, Aotearoa, growing up around that and that environment, bullied, skinnies, white power. That was just normal day life for us going into town, and it was just how it was. You know, have a rumble, boom, boom, boom. And so it was very like, oh, you're Māori? Oh my God, bro, you're Māori? Oh, there's another one over there. You know, and it became this thing. And so connecting like that, and just being constantly in that turmoil of that Christchurch, Ōtautahi, stereotypical race, you know, intention that was going on down there, totally shaped our lives and shaped who we are, and it just made us even more like, I want to be more Māori, you know, what's that? And so hence why I really went hard with the tā moko and everything like that. I did finally find a Māori tattooist. His name was Ricky Manuel, so he did the first moko on me, and that was amazing. I tell you what, that was there. So shouts out to Ricky. And then of course in the music industry, you know, with the way that I look and the music that I play, sometimes can be, you know, in the early days it was very aggressive, it was very in your face, it was heavy metal, rock, like that kind of stuff. And then I discovered, you know, playing dub reggae and music with Salmonella Dub, and that took me off into another journey. And so, I don't even know where I'm going with this, but just being looked at, I guess, as being different, and having the moko and heavily tattooed, but definitely there were situations where I know I didn't get booked for certain festivals, I know I didn't get booked for certain things because of just the way I look and the way that I present myself and stuff like that.
So what did you do to transcend that? What did you do to try and find your own truth and your own...
For sure, we just kept pushing and use it as inspiration and go, well, fuck yes, then let's go. And then, you know, and having my sister Ninakaye on board, who started managing me when I became a solo artist, that's really when I really pushed out and went like, this is me, this is how we're gonna do it, and really gained ownership and authority over my music and art. And that's when we really connected and went, okay, this is us. We can do something really powerful here, and really put our flagpole into the ground of Aotearoa music. And we started Tiki Productions, and then I did my first album as a Past, Present, Future, first solo album. And Ninakaye's been managing me ever since, and we've been through so many ups and downs. You know, another thing, a stereotype, was I got arrested in Tauranga for singing "Fuck the Police" at one of my gigs. Of course, you know, the police come in, I sing "Fuck the Police," which is not illegal, by the way. It's not illegal to sing that song. And of course they came and arrested me and handcuffed me and walked me out through and charged me with inciting a riot, disorderly behaviour, like to start a riot. And of course there was no riots, it was just me performing. But this, you know, that if that was, say, perhaps a non-Māori artist who played that song and sang it, would he be arrested and treated the same way? I possibly don't think so. You know, so there's things like that as well. And that's just always just, you know, it can really either pull you down, or you can use that as, like, you know, inspiration and like, right, this, yeah, and put a fire in the belly. And just keep pushing and keep moving forward. And even today, Ninakaye and I said out to her, like, about the way that the government is now. It's like, oh my God, are you feeling that? Like, we've got this new government, and oh my God, they're just totally, we're going backwards 20 odd years, and And you know, Ninakaye felt the same way, but she also mentioned that, hey, what's new? Let's just get on with it. Just keep doing what we're doing. Don't get pulled down by it. And I was like, absolutely right. You know, this is just, use it as power, use it as an inspiration to just keep pushing your music, your film, your art, your creativity, your authority to ownership that, you know, that's yours, and just keep pushing it and keep pumping it out and sending it out to the world. Yeah, te hei Māori ora.
Ninakaye, how do you find your creative voice? How do you, you know, work as a creative in an industry like this and continually push the boundaries as well?
Wow. Wow. That's a really good question, because, yeah, obviously being a manager, I tend to get boxed as an admin, as a type of person, but actually I'm incredibly creative, and I have a very creative spirit, I have a creative mind, And so, so thank you for even asking that question. I tend to apply it to every aspect of my mahi. You know, just thinking outside boxes all the time. I guess, you know, it's just recognising strengths, you know, when you, and what your strengths and creativity is. As someone who's been in recovery for 22 years, it's a big part of where I get my creative inspiration from. As someone who has a huge passion for connecting with other indigenous cultures, it's where I get my passion from. You know, and I'm often feeling like something big's coming for me in terms of what I'm going to create one day, or what I'm going to channel one day in terms of creativity, only because I've dabbled in so many different industries and creative worlds that, you know, it's just inevitable. But in saying that, probably the greatest creations, I suppose, not that I created them, are my children and my mokopuna, my grandson. Seeing him is so inspiring to me, and recognising that as a grandmother, I have the capacity to help shape, or not even shape, but to help support his creativity, and that feels like a really important thing, especially right now, to be able to provide a space, to be able to honour his creativity and provide space for him to be able to flourish and to make mistakes but feel safe. And so, yeah, I guess that's probably my main thing at the moment, is really focusing on the future. Where are we heading? Where are we heading? And trying to dream up a longevity thing, you know. It's because the world's in a pretty interesting place at the moment. You know, I just got back from so-called Australia early hours this morning, where I was with a community of hip-hop artists in Sydney, and most of them are indigenous, and there were a whole lot of panels, and it just kept coming up, you know, around where we're currently at the moment. And then jumping on social media yesterday and seeing the news about, you know, the government and the things that they have planned for us. It fires you up, eh? Tiki's talking about that fire in the belly. It fires you up, and that fire comes from a deep, ancient place of creativity. It's so, and if it's not channeled in the right way, it can make us sick, right? So we have to, when that fire comes, we've got to find ways to channel it, and that, to me, that's what creativity is. And my creativity is around connecting, mentoring, inspiring, you know, whatever I can to help share that ahi and the puku, because we don't want to get sick. We actually have to take really good care of ourselves at the moment because of what's going on, you know. And so, I guess that's another thing too, is just another whakaaro around our creativity, around our well-being is hugely important. You know, if Tiki's not well, he can't, like he said, he can't stand up in front of 10,000 people, say, at a festival and do his thing for 1 hour. He can't do that the best that he can in an optimal way. For him to contribute to the well-being of those people, he has to be well, right? And so, I am constantly inspired by my brother with his creativity and how he channels it, you know, in the unseen ways as well, because I think that's a big part of what creativity is. It's about the unseen stuff. Anyway, that was a really weird rant, sorry.
I don't think it's a weird rant, do you? No. Two things I believe. Creativity is a beautiful leveller. It levels the playing field. And that good stories always rise to the surface, always. And that we have a responsibility as creators to tell good stories. And no matter what's going on with Dumb and Dumber and the government and all this other stuff that's happening around us, is that we have a responsibility to our friends, our whānau, to tell these stories. And that's what resonates at the end of the day. Politicians come and go, but the other things last. So regardless of which side of the fence you're on, politically it doesn't matter. Which kind of leads me on to something that Dame Whina Cooper said, is that her greatest wish was for Māori and Pākehā to work together, because only then we could be one true Aotearoa. Filmmaking is a team sport. It's not something that you do by yourself. I just wonder if you could comment on that, Briar, in terms of how you work with people, both Māori and Pākehā, and any other side of the fence, any flavour, any colour, any creed, to tell your stories and what it is you look for in partners and people.
I love collaboration. I love collaborating. It's like when I find the right partners to work for and we're all working towards the same thing, it's just so much, that's when I get the most joy. I do work as a writer a lot in solitary, and so I appreciate those moments when I can get together with my team and collaborators and really go for it. I kind of look for people that are like, we share the vision, we share the message. I have a thing about leaving ego out of the room, and we all have ego, and ego is a healthy thing to some degree, but when it blocks that vision because someone needs to be heard, and this happens quite a bit in film. I work a lot on story tables, with a group of writers, and we're all trying to make us, map out 8 episodes. I work sometimes as a writer for hire, and they bring you in and you jam together on a story and mapping it out, and so someone can go away and write various episodes. And it's kind of a really good way of looking at people and understanding what works, because you have to fulfill certain objectives by the end of the day and what doesn't. And I always find when there's a block, it's because someone isn't down with the vision, and they are letting their own voice and the need to be heard getting in the way. But when we can all appreciate each other's strengths, that's a real joy. And I also want to say with my collaborators, sometimes my collaborators aren't writers. The people I get to read my scripts, one of the people that gave me the best feedback on the script of Cousins was an artist called Star Gossage. She's from Ngāti Wai up in the north, and she read the script, and her feedback on the script wasn't necessarily related to story so much. It was connected to feeling and wairua and the kind of colours she saw when she read the script. And so if you watch the film and you look at a Star Gossage painting, you'll see how she inspired it. So, collaborators can come in all different forms, and so for me, I'm really up for just voice, bring your voice into it and let's see how it changes and becomes better. Stop.
No, great answer. That's great. I'm going to watch Cousins again with that in mind now. And finding your tribe is something I always repeat to people, like finding the people around you who really resonate on the same wavelength with what you're wanting to do and what you're wanting to achieve. It's such an important part of this collaboration of any creative endeavour. We've got a few minutes left, so I'm going to turn it over to you, the audience, for questions. If you'd like to ask our panellists any questions, shoot your hand up. Yes?
The sort of Hollywood way of working and these institutional rules and stuff. Like for you, did you learn those from study of film, like in an institution, and from like working. And then my question is it possible for young people today to actually bypass that and step into an institution where you can just do indigenous, learn indigenous storytelling methods, or like a work placement apprenticeship type thing, like come into a space and you can bypass that Hollywood thing and just come into that space that you're talking about that you like.
So the question is, just for those who didn't hear it, the Hollywood way of working, can we bypass that these days? And are there any indigenous ways of working that...
Can school leaver, can kids at school, is there a pathway for them as a school leaver if that's where they want to go into?
That's a great question.
Yes, someone might know an answer to this, and I don't know if there's anywhere. So mostly you'll go into an institution and they will teach you the traditional way of telling a story. I don't think there's any harm in learning that way and having that as one of your tools, but I think really too it's being able to realise that there are other ways of telling a story and having access to that. I was just looking at Jamie over there, and we have a group that we run called South Auckland Shorts, and the people that come into that group, they're filmmakers from South Auckland. They come in and they can tell a story, and Paige, who runs the film festival, is one of those group. You have to have an affiliation to South Auckland, and we do like 4 workshops a year, I think. But they come in with stories told in their natural voice. Many of them haven't been through anywhere that's told them how to tell a story. So that's a really great space to come in, not being told this is how you do it, coming in with this is how I want to do it. And so what we try and do is look at the way they're naturally trying to tell the story and kind of make that vision stronger rather than go, no, you need this turning point here, that turning point there, that turning point there. I'll just talk about Cousins briefly. The book, the novel, for example, is very non-linear. It jumps throughout time, and if we look at Māori storytelling, the way our orators speak, it's in a non-linear way, right? We stand in the present, but we're pulling from the past, and we're looking to the future, and we're drawing from all these elements to make a point. And that's the way the book operated, and that's a very normal way of telling a story, and it was one way we wanted to continue with the script, not to change it. And a lot of the feedback we had from people that read the script who were really had followed the kind of Hollywood way of telling the story was we don't understand it. It jumps all over the place, but are you sure you don't understand it? Or is that what you've been told a script is like? So I don't have the exact answer to your question, but what I think is that things are changing, and that hopefully these places where our rangatahi go to learn are starting to introduce and offer other examples of a story can also happen. This is also another way.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Rules are made to be broken, of course. But it's good to have a framework sometimes to start with, hey? Yeah. And then you can just pull it all apart. Any other questions?
I have one for Briar. When you're writing, are you writing, like quite often you think of the end product, or do you start from the beginning with your character and then develop it from there? For example, with Cousins.
So I could think of the loose picture of the way the story unfolds. I'm really character-based writer, and I believe that if you have strong characters, they can really start to, because Cousins was a book and it did have a beginning, middle and end, even though we went like that. I believe that character will ultimately decide what happens in the story, and that it's really great if you can go with what the character is wanting to do rather than kind of impose a plot point on them. You want them to get to this point where they've set this building on fire, but you start working with the character and you go, no, you would not do that. They might do the opposite, or it's character first, I believe.
Other questions? Thanks, Paige.
Yeah, for Ninakaye. For those of you that were at the opening ceremony today, Oren came from Ngāti Apakura, and I just wanted to, maybe you could talk a little bit about the songs of Ringo Vai.
Sure. Kia ora, Briar. So Songs of Rangi Aotearoa is a documentary, or the piece that you'll see festival is a short documentary, maybe 10 minutes long, I think. And it's covering the story, or it's a little insight into an album that's been created by four Māori artists, Ria Hall, Tiki, Rakai, Fofo and Victor Hawkins, incredible artists, to honour the truth behind Rangi Aotearoa. And so if you don't know about Rangi Aotearoa, it's a place up the road, whenua up the road of Ngāti Apakura, Ngāti Hinetu, and sadly there was an unnotified massacre by the British soldiers upon the people there when they were in a church service on a Sunday. This happened in the late 1800s. And it's a rather devastating story, but it's been kind of hidden, and it has come out in recent years, but it's come out as part of the battle commemoration things that have been happening amongst Māoridom, where Māori have been honouring the Battle of Rangiriri, of Ōrākau, of up north at Ruapekapeka, and over in Tauranga of Pukehinahina, thank you, bro. Yeah, so it kind of got thrown in that kete, and it's only through some of the descendants of Ngāti Apakura, such as Matua Tom Roa, if you know him. He's one of the great historians, very humble kaumātua of ours here in Waikato, Mania. So approached my friend Daff and her trust, asking if she would help come up with a project that could start to get the truth out there. And so that's what Songs of Rangi Aotearoa is. It's covering the process of these four artists learning about the history of Rangi Aotearoa and writing waiata. And so there will be an album that comes out in February on the date of the attack that occurred, to commemorate it. And so if you can get along to that as well, it's quite, especially for this area, it's very important that if you live here, that you understand what that story is. Yeah.
It's playing a documentary short.
Okay.
You guys can get along to that.
mistyflix.co.nz. Any last questions before we finish up? Yeah.
You got this one. I've got one for Briar. When you've written a body of work, and because I learned this morning in another panel that when you write something in the film industry and then it goes on to a producer and all that, you lose the IP rights. Was it IP rights? Some of the rights. Or some of the rights of your body of work to get it produced. How do you feel about that? Like,
Yeah, it's a real
I
issue.
can also answer that as a producer.
Actually, you should answer.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a producer and as many of my friends who are producers too, we don't feel like we're stealing the work from the writer, and that's certainly not the part of the process. What we're doing is, like I was saying, filmmaking is a team sport. What we're doing is legally transferring the rights to one entity, so one business entity, where it goes. But of course, absolutely, the writer should be... Yeah, so there's another agreement that is done between the production company and the writer in order to either purchase the rights outright, or mostly there'd be a fee, and there'd also be ongoing royalties. And quite often the writer is also the director too, so there'd be another agreement with the director as well. So the creators, the core creators, always share in that, always should share in that. Yeah. So if you ever have an agreement that is otherwise.
When I heard it this morning, I was like, hey.
No, definitely ask questions if that's the case. Yeah. And I suppose, I mean, before I knew what a producer was, I used to think they were these, money-grabbing people who would just come along and take all your money. They're the capitalists who are going to, exploit the story. But certainly all the producers I know, maybe there's a few in Hollywood, I'm not sure, but all the producers I know here are caretakers of that story, of that work, and we want to see it on screen as much as anyone else. And we also agree that people should share in the profits of that. Yeah.
And with Tiki, how does that work in the music industry too, like the stuff that you write?
Yeah.
How do you protect your stuff?
Yeah, that's it's a kind of like a project or song by song basis. Some things, I might just get hired as a producer, and depending on the act, like often we've got templates that Ninakaye's written up or worked out on how to, if someone wants to engage with me as a producer or as an engineer or as a vocalist. So there's a bunch of things that I do. If it's a producer, then I'll usually ask, do you have funding? And if they say yes, then great, I'm going to put a couple more zeros on the end of that fee, like that kind of thing. If it's not funding, then I'll go, okay, we'll do it, let's work something out. And then I'll often go, so you've got the song, is it written? Yes, it's in demo form, great. Can I hear it? Great. And then I'll say, hey, perhaps maybe change some of the arrangement, perhaps try this, try that. Depending on how much work I do with that depends on how much I will say as a producer. Like standard, it's 2 producer points, I think, per song or something. Sometimes I take that, sometimes I don't. Depends on the situation. As I said, if it's a big artist who has lots of funding or a record label, then I will charge top dollar. But if it's a homie or if it's someone that I really believe in, I've heard your music, it's incredible, then I'll just stand back and go 100%, I'll just help you. I'll take a small fee, overall fee, but you own it, it's yours, you go to town with it. If it blows up and it gets on some movie soundtrack and you make $1 million, then hey, flick me something, bro. But other than that, it's all cool, So we operate that on that level. We have contracts that we write up, but we are so fluid with it, depending on the situation. Because at the end of the day, it's all about getting that creation out there, and we never want to stand in the way of that. We want to embellish it and help that. So if that means us sometimes doing things for next to nothing or free, then so be it, because it's a kaupapa driven project. If it's a kaupapa driven project, man, we're all in. We're all in. And if something comes back, great, but there's no expectations. It's all just like, let's make this happen. Because we believe that stuff comes back. It comes back. And it has come back for me tenfold. I've done so many things just for the love, and it's come back, and I've just gone, wow, just been very grateful for that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to continue on with that attitude. And hey, it's working for us, and it's a beautiful feeling too. So getting back to your question, it varies. It's varies. So if you would like to record a tune with me and produce it, I'll be like, sweet bro, it's a bro deal. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Hold the mic.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry,
brother, I don't have the mic. Two-part question. I know, lucky guy, eh? First question is, I just wanting to get an insight into your creative process in regards to your music, and then the other part of that, how that's translated into the directing and film part of it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
cool. So the creative thing is, it's constant. It's just constantly on. It's non-stop. I think about it. Last thing I think about when I go to, my wife is like, oh my God. The last thing I think about when I go to bed is these projects, and the first thing I think about when I wake up are the projects. And my wife, of course, and the kids and the dogs. But it's constant. It is constant because I've been doing this since I was 14, creating, and it's just constantly happening. And so it's a constant creative thing. It's this constant thing that's constantly happening all the time. And I'm just always trying to put it down. And every day I got a studio off the side of my house, and I go in there every day, and I go, I'm so thankful that I've got this space that I've built, and it's got all my stuff, and it's super easy and super quick to make things happen. And I go in there every day, I create something, every single day, or 2 things or 3 things, and I park them up. Some things they will never see the daylight, right? But the thing is the process. And if you keep doing it every day, it's just like training at the gym, it's just like yoga, it's like everything. It just becomes a thing. It just becomes a thing, and it just boom. And so I don't get creative blocks. I was actually going to ask you, Briar, about this, if you get creative blocks. I don't get creative blocks because I'm so busy that it just doesn't happen. And I've got so many things on the go, I'm juggling so many things that if I have a problem, like if I hit a wall with that, I'll just straight over there and go that one, do that one. And then I'll be able to see that one differently in a different light. So that's the creative process, it's constant, yeah. And I'm really into just recording it non-stop, just filming things, recording things, and just parking it up. It doesn't have to become something, but it's the process that is important. Sorry, bro, you can't give me the call.
I'm going to start.
Wind it up. Shit.
I know that some people need to be over there to pitch.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. There is in 15 minutes, isn't it? Is that the, yeah, okay. So all of these lovely people will be available afterwards. You can tap into them. I've had so many more questions about what Briar's writing space looks like and how she gets through her creative blocks, but we can ask all these questions. I'm sure they're very accessible.
Take them for a coffee.
Take them for a coffee, yeah, exactly. Please put your hands together for our awesome panellists, Tiki, Ninakaye and Briar. Fantastic. We learned some great things today, that, you know, your voice is unique. Make sure you use it. The voice of Aotearoa is unique. Make sure you use that as well. That even producers can be creative people, Ninakaye, or managers. Spreadsheets are very creative things. And that, what is it? Like 10% of something is better than 0% of nothing. So if you've got a story, share it. Yeah. Don't keep it in the bottom drawer. Share it. Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.